Hey, welcome to La Cena, where the gossip is just as good as the food. My name is Justin Cano, and I am a freshman, and my major is history. To us, we have...
Derek. My name is Derek Diaz. I am a sophomore, and I major in computer science.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra, and I am a junior psychology major.
All right. So, today's topic, guys, we're going to talk about urban legends as our starter point because, we're in the main course. We're getting there.
Yeah.
But what do we know about urban legends?
They're stories that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
Stories?
Yeah, I always saw like urban legends. I specifically think of cryptids because I was so obsessed with cryptids as a kid.
Wait. What's cryptid?
A cryptid, so examples I can think of is like Bigfoot and like the Loch Ness Monster, creatures of this sort. And I was terrified of them as a kid, but I was still really, really interested in them. It still kind of spooked me. Like if I look up the Loch Ness Monster, it's terrifying.
Cryptid sounds like a creeper. not like Minecraft.
Oh, I was thinking about that.
That's what that sounds like. Okay, now you realize that. But I mean, of course we know those, but do we know anything more, to the culture? Like in your, for example, in your neighborhoods, have you had like any kind of ghost stories that happen, even in your house or nothing like that?
I mean, as a kid, I thought I saw a ghost.
You did?
Yeah.
How?
Okay, so this was in Mexico. I was sleeping. We had this really big house, and on the first floor, I was, because we had this big house, but we had little rooms.
Uh-huh.
So in this one room, I was sharing it with my mother, and she was in one corner, I was in the other corner, and there was like this bookshelf like between us or something, and I thought I saw something behind the bookshelf, and I like clearly remember that, like I remember seeing that, and I was like, dude, I think I just saw a ghost. And my dad said he saw something similar, not in the house, but he was hanging out like in the woods with his friends when he was younger, and he thought he saw something. But it's just I just think it's our eyes playing tricks, but you never know.
All right, yeah, so that happens. And you, my dear Sandy?
I do not have anything of that sort. Like, nothing has happened to me, but I've heard stories. Like,
You heard stories?
Yeah, like for my middle school.
Uh-huh.
It used to be a high school back in the days, but I guess the story went that it got burned down, like not completely, like just a part of the school. Apparently there was when it was burning down, there was a girl in the bathroom, got stuck in the bathroom.
Shoot.
I don't know for sure if she did die because of the fire or if she died afterwards after she was saved, but people say that that one specific bathroom where she was at is haunted.
Have you been to that bathroom?
Yes, I have. And actually, I just remembered when I went to the bathroom one time. I was in 5th grade, and I went there by myself. There was no one in the bathroom.
Uh-oh.
And then I heard the water running, like the sink. I heard it running, and I was like, but I thought no one was here. And then I was like, okay, I need to leave. So, I did my thing, and then I left.
Well, to me, in Mexico, there were so many things. Of course, you have, El Chupacabras and La Llorona. But have you ever heard of El Charro Negro?
No.
No, I have not.
Oh, that's... So, my grandfather used to say that, a long time ago, it was during the French-American War, that this guy, where the charros were just getting a popular thing, that this guy, he came by and asked death for a favor. According to, he asked death for the favor. He said that if you make me the richest and most powerful man, or the most well-known man in Mexico, I'll give you my soul. Technically, that's the devil's job, but I'm not complaining. I didn't say the story, so I can't say. But that's what the whole deal was. And the death accepted the deal. Now, the man, when it was about his time to leave, he wanted to cheat on the deal. He wanted to somehow have a loophole to be found. He couldn't find one. So when death was trying to take his life, he made a bet. He made a bet with death. He said, he said that if he is remembered by the time he dies, even after he dies, that means that he can keep his soul and go to heaven if he is remembered by the people. But what happened later was that no one remembered him. Death made sure that no one remembered him whatsoever. After that happened, he had another job. Death had him another job. His job was now to be dressed like a charro, in all black tone, like we talk emo style, but in a horrible way.
Right.
And people say that usually he writes a horse that has flaming fire and a nose that just pukes out smoke out. And it's supposed to be terrifying. I've never seen it. But the point is that if you go at night in the trees or in the forest and you're trying to look for him, you might find him and make a deal with him. If you actually get on with your part of the deal, he will do his. But you'll have to give out your soul to him. And you'll have to be forgotten.
Dang. Why would anyone make a deal then? What's the upside?
Well, rich, power, fame.
Right, but
You know-
I don't know. It doesn't seem worth it though. Like he's just gonna win over you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, my grandfather, you know that song, Amorcito Corazón,
Yeah.
Yo Tengo Tentación. In fact, that song, according to my grandfather, it was made by one of our neighbors. But he made a deal with death, meaning with El Charro Negro, meaning that his song was never published and he never became famous, and the song went to another person. That's what my grandfather says. Then he passed away, but, you know, you gotta have him
Right.
out. But yeah, legends are amazing.
Mhm.
I used to have like so many when I was at kindergarten. For example, how many of you know La Llorona?
Yeah,
Me.
of course.
Yeah.
Of course. and even you, dear viewer, I bet you've seen the movie. You know that? Didn't they come up with a movie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the animated one. I've seen the animated one.
Oh,
I
there's
don't know
a
if you guys have.
yeah. There's like a live action one too that came out.
So what was your experience with it? Like, what's your version of the story?
La Llorona. I'm not exactly sure, but I know of the name, of course, but like La Llorona didn't like her children die, and she like went looking for them, and now she's like every night, or maybe not every night, but she has a thing where she's like asking for her children, and you can hear her if you're like doing stuff. If you're in the forest or something and you hear that, you're like, oh no, I'm out of here.
Yeah. And you, Sandy?
Well, my version, the way I know it, is that La Llorona, or the woman, she basically went to the river where she was like bathing her two kids, and for some reason, all of a sudden, she decided that she wanted to drown them, so she drowned them in that river. And then from there, she didn't realize what she was doing. So when she came to, she saw what she did, and then she was terrified. And then she realized she lost her kids. So then from that day, I guess she would go around the river or the woods looking for her kids that she had killed.
You know,
Dang.
my family always owned a ranch in
Mhm.
Mexico, and in that ranch there was a little creek.
Mm-hmm.
And it passed, and that's where we irrigated all the trees. And because we had trees, we didn't have like farmable land. We had trees of nuts and oranges and such.
Mhm.
But according to my grandmother, she never wanted me. We used to stay there for like saints parties, but she never wanted me to stay in those parts of at that time, because she says like Llorona passes through those little creeks, because like you said,
Yeah.
it passes through water little creeks. So that's why you don't go walking at night in water creeks.
Yeah.
That's a warning.
And it
You've
kinda
been warned.
area water.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm trying to swim at the middle of the night.
You know.
No.
Yeah, and family tells you these stories. Legends are things that have a truth, right?
Some truth to it.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
it came from something.
there's a truth, but then people want to spice it up with some drama.
Yeah.
Everything has drama,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even families have drama. But talking about families, do we know, and of course going about with those little urban legends and how your family knows it, have any of you, had family trees? Since we're going to Day of the Dead, pretty much,
Yeah.
Very soon. Mhm.
Exactly. And, have any of you found out about your families yet, or are you making an altar for them, or no?
None of the
No.
sort, and I feel so fake because I haven't been able to make an altar. I haven't taken the time rather, and it's harder here on campus, of course, But I guess going on to like family tree specifically,
Mm-hmm.
I do not know mine, and obviously there's something up, right? Because I'm not dark skin toned, so I'm white, so I have to have the whiteness from somewhere,
Mhm.
and my best guess is that I'm of Spanish descent. That could be really wrong, but that's my best guess. Just knowing like the city Guadalajara,
Mm-hmm.
it probably is of Spanish descent, and so because like half of my family has darker skin, the other half is white, so something's going on.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
about that, during Spanish colonization times, many Spanish wanted to get away from the urban centers. That's why that's why those regios, Chihuahueños
Yeah.
or Monterrey, they all came from, they all wanted to get away from the Spanish government, and that's why they went north. So yeah, you could have,
Yeah.
Spanish ancestry. I
Mhm.
know you, Sandy, what about you? Like, You know a little bit of your family background or
No,
no?
I don't really know much about my family. A majority of them are in Mexico, so I don't really know any of them. All I know is that I'm from like El Rancho, like literally like maybe somewhere in the woods, not in the woods, but like out there,
Right,
in
right.
like the country area.
In
Like
the
I know I'm
woods.
somewhere from there at least, but other than that, I don't really know like my whole family tree or like any family history at all. Like,
Really?
Yeah.
So back in, during the exclusion law in 1892,
Mhm.
because the United States banned a lot of Chinese people from coming to the U.S. around that time with the Exclusion Act.
You're right.
And what they did was that many of those Chinese that couldn't make it into U.S., they made it to Mexico. And, little trouble happened. They mainly moved to Tijuana and a lot of areas there. And Koreans moved to Yucatan.
Right.
And a lot of Japanese, they had the little urban centers around the south, along with Afro-Mexicans, which were like from Guerrero, which is why in fact, Mexico had the first black president, apart from Haiti, but we had like the first black president in the continental U.S. It's fun to look at your ancestry in, Ancestry.com
Yeah.
or Me23.
23andMe, yeah.
23.
It's good to know where you come from, or what do you think? Are you going to try it out or no?
So I have like opinions about this.
Yeah.
Definitely. So 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Well, I just kind of weird because you're like giving them your DNA, right? And they like have a whole profile on your DNA and like where you're from, and that's kind of suspicious to me.
Well, that DNA proof is not real. It's not accurate per se. It gives you an estimate, but it's not really
Right.
accurate.
I would say it's rather accurate though, because wouldn't it be
Really?
like just?
Mostly accurate.
Yeah, I would say it's mostly accurate. They can't just be like, they just can't lie. They'll be like, you know what? Let's just say he's 50% Ethiopian.
Not like that, but there will be some inaccuracies.
Right, obviously. I assume it's not going to be 100% correct, but despite my security like measures against it, I still would like to know because I am very curious about. Because there was a time where I researched my last names. Like Herrera comes from Guerrero, which is like a worksmith's name, and then Diaz is a much more fancy like upper class name.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I have Herrera Diaz, and so I was trying, and I looked at that and Ancestry.com, like it has that, but like to look at your entire family tree and to get your DNA, you have to pay. So I would like to try it though, because I would like to know my ancestry, because I've never learned much
Start
about
a GoFundMe page.
a GoFundMe
Help
page.
Derek find out what he
For real.
What about you?
Me, I would like to use 23andMe or Ancestry.com just because I would like to find out like what like not ethnicity, but like the bits of part that I could possibly be, or like what I share with others as
Right.
well. Yeah, I just think it's really interesting and fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, never lose sight on your ancestry. I think that's also important to
Yeah.
have that, like just save that just for your personal, for yourself. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be like, I know sort of where my ancestry comes from. Like I know one side of my family is Spanish, like comes from Spanish descent, because during the Spanish Civil War, many Spanish came by, and that's why my great grandfather, he had blue eyes,
Yeah.
and he was Caucasian looking, and that's why we own so much land.
Yeah.
Yes, because white people, right?
Yeah.
But apart from that, of course, my grandmother is brown skinned, and she also has those kind of ethnics. During the Mexican Revolution, in fact, the government after the Mexican Revolution, the government wanted to say we're all mestizos. We're not Native Americans, we're not Chinese, we're not whites, we're all just mestizos. They wanted to create this one sort of unique race, to say that there's no racism in Mexico, but there is.
Yeah.
There is racism, and that's combined with classism,
Right.
and that's combined with the white people coming to Mexico City. Have you heard about that?
No.
Like recently?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Like all Americans are coming to the El DF,
Yeah.
CDMX. It's not going good for them. Is that like
As a-
gentrifying?
Is it like a tourist or like to live there?
Like to live there.
For
To
real.
live there.
I know, right?
True.
But apart from that, I was getting out of the whole thing. But yeah, they wanted to create this mestizaje race, which is why most of the three of us will agree that we're mestizos. Because I bet that's what our parents would say, like, what ethnicity I am,
Yeah.
I would say, oh, we're mestizos. We're not Indian, we're
Yeah.
not white, we're mestizos.
Right.
But do you see that as wrong?
Now that you pointed it out, I do think it is wrong because it eliminates so much of the nuance culture of like where your ancestors came from. So obviously, like me being white, obviously having a lot of like, I feel like it was kind of white people trying to eliminate this like nuance of culture. But yeah, so I do think like getting rid of the nuances of cultures is bad, and I kind of wish we didn't do that historically, so we could learn more about each other.
Yeah, I agree with Derek because it kind of erases the diversity that we've had in the past years and stuff, and it's just like you want to know who you are, where you came from. It's like
Exactly.
yeah, just if you come from one thing, that's no fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Facts.
I mean, to be honest, you could be related to a famous revolutionary general,
Yeah.
or someone that is important, but you just know it, and that's really, you know,
Yeah.
it like tickles my brain. It just makes me not mad, but what's the word for it? Disappointing
Mhm.
that many people don't look at their ancestry because they don't know if they could have, you know, this person as their ancestor.
Mhm.
For example, Marilyn Monroe was Latina,
Yeah.
because her mom was, you know, Mexican.
Yeah.
And many people could be related to her, or other people could be related, and they're important people that you guys could be
Yeah.
related to.
Like
or
just
I could.
icons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be Mexican icons, or it could be even some American ones too.
Yeah. Facts.
So I would really encourage also for the audience, you know, look up who you are
Yeah.
as a person. You might think, why would I need to know that? It's just old things.
Yeah.
But it depends because it's your family legacy and you're representing those people that you had, or no.
Yeah.
Or what you think.
Yeah, and then you want to tell your grandkids or your kids about
Yeah.
it too.
Just
Yes,
a
you
cool
want to
fact,
brag
right?
a little.
Exactly, and I agree with that thing too, because I used to think, well, it's in the past, right? Like, who cares about, like, what is my makeup? What is my ethnic makeup? Like, I used to think that it was, you know, whatever. But now, like, I take it pretty seriously, you know, because like, I just feel like it's a big part of your identity. It's a big part of your like how you were able to get here in the first place, right? Like how you arrived at this spot is due to a lot of factors, and knowing about it is just it's exciting. Like, it really is exciting stuff.
It is exciting to find out, you know, why do you need to have this? Why are you the way you are?
Mm-hmm.
To explain like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't know who you, even as, you know, as college students, when we were teenagers, well, we still are, well, I am,
Right.
but you don't have that self-identity on yourself, you know?
Mm.
You even as you know, as immigrants, as we are, we sometimes we feel like don't fit in, and I know that's called something, no? It's a syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome, there we
Yeah.
go. We have imposter syndrome, and I think a good way to help on that would also be to knowing our background,
Exactly.
would be to knowing who our family is. Maybe it could help out on that syndrome. I never had it, thank God, but I could, you know, I know people that had that syndrome, and I know how they
Right.
would feel like.
Yeah.
And I think that a good way, maybe it won't fix the problem, but it could certainly alleviate a little by knowing who your ancestry is.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
knowing who your ancestors were. That's good. To know.
Absolutely.
I know, right?
I definitely agree.
But again, I still think we should try, you know, Ancestry.com and 23andMe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should try them, but
Whenever it goes on sale.
Yeah, because actually research it's like $100.
$100?
I
Yeah.
saw, yeah.
Independent, yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Well, it's $100 for that.
Yeah, $100 for a kid. So.
Yeah, it's $100 and I want to try it.
You
So
do?
I'm gonna try to do it when it goes on sale, if I can.
Right.
Yeah, cause like I want to find out if like, cause I have this like suspicion that I may be indigenous, but like who knows? So like I just want to see if I am or not.
Would you be willing to try it?
The 23andMe or the Ancestry.com?
Both.
I'm still on the fence, right? Because again, that security thing. But I might make my brother do it. Because we have the same, we have the
He's gonna be-
same
he's gonna be
lineage
your
and
guinea
everything.
pig.
So I might make my brother do it, and we can look at it together. But I mean, yeah, I would like to know, like, obviously, and if this is like one of the few ways where you can actually know, like, without looking through like tons of like history books and like recordings and reports.
Yeah.
But this just makes it like a lot easier and a lot more accessible. So I would like to try it, even though the security stuff.
Start a
But-
GoFundMe page on that one.
Yeah. Right.
Go support his GoFundMe.
Also, I do want to try also because like my family, we're from Oaxaca, and they talk or they speak Mixteco with one another.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is like a different language. It's not Spanish. So I'm like, maybe that has something to do with like the indigenous side of our family.
Right.
That could be. Yeah, so that's another reason why I want to try it out.
You're just curious.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah.
So you guys said it could kill the cat, but in your case, I think it's gonna heal it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
think
think?
so.
Mhm.
Or what you think, Derek? You think the cat could be healed or cured?
Well, I think obviously there's gonna be like parts of history of everyone where you're not gonna be too happy.
Yeah.
Of course, because
yeah.
there's like a whole bunch of horrible events that happen throughout history. It's just a fact of life, unfortunately. And like, but I still want to know, because I still think that despite looking Caucasian and everything, there's like a rich cultural history, not just like in my family, but like in just me as well. And so I definitely want to know about that.
We also have to look at other cultures. I know we're talking about Mexico because we're Mexican, but there's also Central American, which is kind of like if you could describe Central America in one word, what would it be?
Well, I don't know if it's just like one word, but I definitely think like I think Central America is very similar to Mexico, just because there's a lot of similar history in like indigenous tribes.
So let's make it a sentence.
I feel like it's I don't know, I can't put it into a sentence.
I just think it's still diverse.
Yeah.
It's so diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's diverse.
Yeah.
Because in Guatemala you got Mayan people, you got in El Salvador you got a lot of Palestinian people, in Honduras you got a lot of mestizo people too, and Costa Rica is also filled with that influence.
Mm-hmm.
So Central America to me in one word would be like fluorescent, because so many cultures that spark from there. Along with Colombia, like you see in the north in the south of Colombia, in the center, you see a lot of white people. But if you take to the coast of Colombia, you also will see like Afro-Colombians. Yeah. And in Mexico, you have Afro-Mexicans too.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's from Guerrero. Well, yeah. So they always call him El Negro or El Morenito, even though that's not okay by any means. But it's just a Mexican lingo that they use. And he never felt comfortable with it. And I said, no, my name is not this, it's Hugo. You better call me Hugo. Yeah. And it's understandable because there's many myths of cultures together, and it's just you mix in, but you also keep forgetting your identity as a person. Or am I wrong? Am I right?
Yeah, I feel like if you have other people calling you different stuff, it could definitely diminish like where you're from in your culture. So that's why, like when I tell people to pronounce my name, I say like don't say the H; it's a silent H. And I just think because it's always been a silent H. So
your last name?
Yeah, Herrera. So like people would say Herrera, and I just so I tell them to say Herrera, like no H. And I just think because I feel like it preserves like that identity of you. So I agree. Like we should definitely take that into account because. Even in like Mexico and stuff, like with minorities, they don't, and so I think respecting that keeps alive like that culture because it makes up so much of your past.
Yeah, don't forget also Ecuadorians and Venezuelans, and even Brazilians, because in the south of Brazil you got a lot of white people, in the north of Brazil you got a lot of brown skin people, but they have taken a different approach in things. They had slavery, and they were the last country to end slavery in the Americas. Yeah, but they're not perfect because there's still racism, but they are just blind about it. And they don't see racism. According to them, it's just classism. And classism is a real thing. We both know what classism is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the social class. Are you talking about social class?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're discriminating based on your social class.
Yeah.
So that's what classism is. Like you say naco. No, for the audience, so for our audience who doesn't know that, naco is... How would you describe naco?
A naco? I don't know. It's like
the way I saw when I was little, whenever my friends would say like, "Oh, it is naco," or "Oh, it is naka," I'll be like, "Oh, they're calling me like a nerd or like a quirky person or something like that." I don't know. I never associated it as like a bad word or anything. Just like oh, you're like it just describes you, but not in a good way, but also not in a bad way.
So. From what I know, naco is seen as like a derogatory term for poor people. Like if you got like if you're from the hood in like Mexican, like Tepito,
Yeah.
and you say, "Oh, eres tú muy naco." That means, or you have like a sense of things. Like, for example, you wear like those, wife beaters, and then you have like that certain kind of haircut. You seen La Rosa de Guadalupe? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I've seen La Rosa de Guadalupe very rarely.
Yeah,
That's like a
I
mom
have
show.
I watched it when I was little, but now I
Oh
don't.
my goodness, am I the only one that watches that still?
Dude,
I
probably.
Like como dice el dicho too.
Yeah.
I like that, yeah, but I don't watch it.
Yeah. We know what it is, though. We know what it is.
All right, so like that, those things that they talk like very, like, pero es que sabes de dónde vengo.
Yeah.
Like that.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by naco.
Yeah.
Or when they say el príncipe, the prince, it's like they're talking about those people who are rich class, like fresas.
Yeah. I know Fresa as well.
So for the audience, again, fresa is like a pimpy prep kid.
Preppy kids that go to like,
Yeah,
like
like a stereotypical
Yes.
preppy,
Yeah.
like
Yes,
Mexican
like
kid. At
those.
least that's how, like, I'm correlating it to.
yeah.
Uh-huh, like that.
Mhm.
Not the best friend you could have.
Right.
So again, that's classism.
Yeah.
Those are terms of classism. Even in the United States, we have classism. We can make things work if we know more about our ancestry. That's just the whole point. This is a summary of the whole podcast
Yeah.
that we can talk about, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Like, if you respect where you're from, you realize, like, if you look down everyone's family tree, eventually you, like, find those spots where you can relate to anyone.
We would encourage you to look up your ancestry. Make an ofrenda this Day of the Dead if you're Hispanic. Even if you're not, do it. Support the local your local bread store, by the Mexican bread store, not just any bread store, by buying pan de muerto. Your local flowery shop, by buying cempasúchil or marigold flowers. Remember your ancestry, remember your stories. I would encourage you to read a lot of Mexican urban legends, even if they're not Mexican, because we're getting to Halloween.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And in Mexico, we don't have Halloween, we have calaveritas. It's like the same thing, but instead you knock at the door and you say, "Me puede dar una calaverita?" Instead of trick or treat. Is there anything that you could take from today's podcast?
No, well, I would just say definitely, like, look into your ancestry. I've been wanting to. Of course, we've just been terrified of Ancestry.com, but I definitely want to look more into it because I think it's very important to, be knowledgeable about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I also think that like history itself is very important because it's like where everything, like the present is only the present because of the history that had happened.
Mhm.
So yeah, basically it.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, well, guys, thank you for joining us today. It's great. It's fun for you to listen. You people that actually listen to the show and support us, thank you so much for listening.
All right, huge thanks for everyone that has visited us today in the podcast. It was a pleasure talking to you guys about Latin American celebration moments. I hope that we continue having interesting conversations like this one on La Cena. To the viewers, please check the description and click on the form if you'd like to join us on the panel or if you'd like to ask us a question. And also make sure to follow at CBU HSA to stay updated.